And it was just so frustrating for me. I'm the only male in my family who's not diabetic. I grew up in the South. I think you and I talked a little bit about this on our podcast where, I grew up drinking sweet tea and eating, the stuff that most people eat. And I had no idea that it wasn't healthy. And I
Hmm.
think today that's the thing that kind of fuels my mission more than anything is the lack of education in terms of how to feed ourselves. It's amazing that we have adults and we have kids growing up and we're not being taught how to truly feed ourselves. I mean, we know how to go to the store and buy something and eat it, but we really don't know about how the body works and how to feed it. So that was kind of it. The idea of becoming a model was, I knew I needed some kind of platform. Well, why is anybody going to listen to this dude who says, "Hey, you should be eating whole eggs"? When I said that in 2009, people were like, "Wait, really?" It's a different story now, right? I think
Yeah.
people are a little bit more receptive to that, and we've made a lot of progress since then. So New York model, became a personal trainer there, moved home, um, continued working as a personal trainer, started my own gym, House of Strength, have transitioned from that into doing the podcast for Natural Stacks, and now it's become full time with them in terms of blogging, doing all kinds of content, and helping them spread their message and hopefully disrupt the supplement industry. And that's our goal there with Natural Stacks.
That's an awesome goal, man. I think you guys are doing it. I love Natural Stacks, and like I was telling you before the show, I plug it as much as I possibly can. In fact, someone just texted me. I mean, literally about 20 minutes ago, and I have the text to prove it. And they asked me what type of protein to get, and I sent them just the link. So, and I don't, I'm not on your guys' payroll, so I'm just saying you're making, you got good fans, and we're gonna get into some of the stuff on the food
Yeah.
and the exercise in just a second. But I mean, how did you connect with Natural Stacks? What was the link there? I mean, what made that natural?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you plugging us and supporting us, helping us push that message. So the connection was actually when I had House of Strength, the gym, when we were going full throttle, we actually got contacted by them to be a wholesaler. And I told them, hey, at the time I was doing a podcast for the gym, and I said, hey, I would like to do a podcast with you guys, interview you. I had heard their Siltep creator, Abelard, on Bulletproof Radio, on
Hmm.
Dave Asprey's podcast.
Okay.
So I'd heard of them, and I'd actually tried Siltep. I loved it. I'm kind of a nerd. I like to read science stuff. I've always kind of been into like the scholastic things. So when I heard about Siltep, I was like, oh, I can actually be smarter. So I think that was my first introduction to the company, and then I actually went to the Bulletproof conference um, in 2014 and met them out there. We went out to dinner and just kind of we hit it off. I mean, the co-founders Ben and Roy are just awesome guys. They kind of have the same belief that you and I had that the supplement industry wasn't meeting the needs of people like you and I, people who want premium ingredients. We want honest labels. We want to know exactly what's in the products we're getting. We want the best of everything. So they created that, and with them wanting to have it in our gym, my stance with the gym was I'm only going to sell retail things in the gym that I use personally. People have always asked me when I was modeling, when I was being a personal trainer, whatever. They always ask, and it's just like you got a text, hey, what protein should I use, or anything like that. I'm never going to recommend something to another person that I wouldn't use myself. And it just made it natural that if I was going to start carrying products in the gym, that I was going to get involved as a wholesaler with things that I used. So for the most part, for us, that was Bulletproof and Natural Stacks. Um,
Do you think that I was just having this conversation earlier today? Do you think that there's a lot of good supplement companies that are starting to kind of to surface, and it hasn't been the case in the past. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you walk into a GNC, it's like a roller rink in there with all that neon green and pink and all that's going on, and the giant dudes with veins. I mean, do you find is there any people that you come across that are still skeptical of the quality of some of the supplements out there?
yeah, I think it's. I mean, because the industry has been, the stereotype is exactly what you just said, and it's been that way for so long. Yes, we're making progress. Yes, there are a couple of other companies out there, but we're really just starting to get that rolling. So, the public perception of supplements is still, hey, I don't know that I can trust these people. And one of the things that we're doing to try to get around that, or to try to help people understand that they can trust, at least with natural stacks, is we never use proprietary blends. We
Yeah.
always have completely open source labels. So we tell you exactly how much of what ingredient is in there. And so if people who are listening don't know what a proprietary blend is, go pick up any supplement that you have in your pantry or at your home right now. And odds are you're going to see where it just says, protein blend or this blend or proprietary blend. And it'll tell you the sum, but it won't tell you the breakdown of those components.
Mhm.
And that's what a proprietary blend is. So, if I was making a protein powder, I could say, hey, this is, 22% or 22 grams of protein. And, 20 grams of it can be the lowest quality stuff that barely qualifies as protein.
Yeah.
Or if I say this nootropic is, 1,000 milligrams of a proprietary blend, 900 milligrams could be sand. And
Yeah.
that can pass. And people are starting to realize that, that's not what they want. And you're right. Like there are a lot of companies coming out now and trying to change that. Uh, but I do still think that a lot of people's perception is that, that's it. We're not in the Wild West anymore. We're slowly getting people to realize that.
Thank goodness, man. And it's funny story. I ran out of some magnesium and or some ZMA or whatever it was a couple weeks back, and I'm driving after my workout. I'm driving. I saw GNC, and I haven't been in a GNC in a long time. I mean, it's with Amazon and like Natural Stacks and Bulletproof and these companies where you could just order and it comes. It's so much simpler and it's much better quality. But I'm like, oh, I need it. I need it today, so I'm gonna jump in. So I went in to the GNC and I go in. I'm like, hey, do you guys have any zinc magnesium stacks or just magnesium? And of course, it brings me to the magnesium oxide, right? Which
Right.
is just
Like
diarrhea waiting to happen
right,
or
right.
whatever.
Better
Junk,
off taking nothing. Right.
not gonna absorb it, right? So I'm like, no. What about magnesium zinc stack? Do you have anything like that? And he's like, well, we've got like Robo Blend or whatever, some just ridiculous thing. And he brings me over and it's got all that, and then it's got like caffeine anhydrous and all this other just tons of caffeine in it. I'm like, man, what is this, dude? I'm not trying to like become a superhero.
Right.
So there's always that danger with the supplements, right? I mean, it's like that.
Yeah, and again, that's why we've always said with natural stacks, you're going to see exactly what's in it. There's never going to be a surprise, and like I said, with the guys Ben and Roy that started it, they had the same frustrations that you have. You pick up the product and you're like, okay, and then you flip to the back and you read the ingredients and you're like, man, what is this crap? I don't want that. And like you said, it's even if it is just plain magnesium, it may not be the best version of it. And that's another thing that we focus on is, number one, with a name like natural, we have to have everything in our product be natural. There's no synthetic ingredients. That's what we want, but also by naming the company Natural Stacks, we have to adhere to that. And then, when it comes to ingredients, the goal is always going to be what's the most bioavailable form of magnesium, or what's the best form of whatever product we're talking about. If it's protein, it's grass-fed whey protein. It's not denatured, it's not heat processed. All of those things that, the only reason that every other company doesn't do that is for profit margins. They want to keep their bottom line as low as possible so they can make as much profit as they can. And GNC marks some of that stuff up ridiculous. And I mean, it's just, and I think that's another reason people kind of feel snake bitten when it comes to, or reluctant, hesitant, whatever words you want to use about, supplements.
Yeah. And one of the supplements that most people use regardless is protein. And you guys have a pretty awesome protein with the grass-fed whey, with the collagen. It's really awesome stuff. Tell, Johnny Weightlifter, who's on the show here, and he's excited about getting ready to work out, but he wants to kind of, go the Natural Stacks route, the ex Nihilo route. What's the difference between, some sort of GNC protein and then what you guys got going over at Natural Stacks?
What's people use the saying all the time where it's like, why have hamburger when you can have filet, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Like, I mean, you're talking about extreme differences in quality of protein, but also the product itself. I mean, if you look at our label on our protein, it's whey, it's collagen. We actually have colostrum and then there's either the vanilla or the cacao, whatever it's flavored with. That's it. There's no sugar, there's no filler, there's no emulsifiers. There's nothing in there that you don't want. I mean, if you're taking, this was always something that blew my mind, and I used to write about this all the time, even before I joined up with Natural Stacks. Was, if you go look at the average protein label, and the serving may be, let's say the serving is a 30-gram scoop, right? And the grams of protein might be 20 to 25 grams, right? What's the other 5 or 10 grams?
Sand.
Well, it's not protein, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm trying to buy concentrated protein powder. Like
Yeah.
I want protein, and I'm not saying ours isn't 100% with Natural Stacks. It's not I don't have the tub in front of me, but I'm sure somebody's going to go out there and say, well, I think our serving of our serving is like 16 grams of protein, and it may be like a 19 or 20-gram scoop, but you're getting really, really high quality protein that helps your body. Your body doesn't have to fight it. If you're taking low quality, if you're putting any low quality food in, then your body has to fight it. You have negative responses as opposed to a positive response. Personally, I would rather eat 100 grams of the best protein available than have 300 grams of BS protein from, crappy chicken breasts and mercury filled tuna and garbage protein powder. If we're talking like Johnny Bodybuilder, I mean, I think you and I have both gone through the phase where, that was where we were
Oh yeah.
also.
Oh yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with being there. It's just at some point you have to realize that, we're in this for the long haul, and we want what's best for our bodies. And I don't know about you, but I mean, I can say that personally now I'm able to perform at a higher level. I feel like I look better than I did when I was a model, and I feel better than I did at that time. And my approach to calories is completely different. My approach to protein is different. And I mean, you're hearing the differences now where it's all about quality, putting the best in and getting the best out. And it's not just, that's in terms of ingredients, not just macros.
Yeah, I think people have always kind of taken the idea of quality and kind of put it together with something like price, where if the protein is $80 at GNC, then it must be really good quality. But man, I've had some of these proteins or some of these other supplements, and I felt horrible after. I mean, we're talking stomach aches and headaches and nausea. I mean, I've thrown up after having like chug a protein shake in high school and then try to go do a workout and go, oh man, what did that do to me? But the quality of the supplement makes a world of difference. You have a good grass fed quality whey protein before you work out. I mean, that's going to replenish you. You're going to feel good. You're not going to feel horrible after. I mean, so that's a big difference. Quality does matter. I mean,
It does. And if you're paying that close attention to your body and how your brain is working, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you respond to anything that you eat, you'll find out pretty quickly, whether your body likes this supplement, this protein, whatever it is that you're putting in, whatever it is you're taking. I'll tell you a funny story real quick. Have you ever heard of muscle testing?
no.
Okay. So there's this whole thing. You should probably get an expert on it. You can do a whole podcast on muscle testing.
All right.
The idea is that everything in the world vibrates, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be that guy on your podcast. I came on it. I'm going to be the guy that's like a kook, right? So I have a book. I love this guy. Is David Hawkins. This is a book, Power versus Force.
Okay.
You would love it. And he's got a couple other ones. Letting Go is a great book. But anyway, everything vibrates. Words vibrate. They have they're connected to vibrations. And so with muscle testing, it's like, all right, I have this glass of water, and you can do a baseline test of either like breaking a circle like this, or like you hold your arm out and you push it down and see how easily it goes down, right? You have to have two people. So one person is the tester, one person is the testee. But if I was going to test this water, right? If this water was good for me, if it was going to make me stronger, then I would have better resistance in my arm going down or having that circle broken. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if something has a negative effect on me, then it's going to go down. So the reason I showed you that book is like everything in that book is based on muscle testing.
That's cool.
Like even tells you like there's famous people through history, like what level they vibrated at, and it's really cool.
Wait, what's the book again? Say that again.
It's called Power versus Force.
Power versus Force. Who wrote? David Hawkins. We're going to link that in the show notes on xnihilohealth.com so we can get folks to buy that.
MD, PhD. I mean, he's it's not all frou-frou, cuckoo stuff, but anyway, the story is when we were at the Bulletproof conference this year, we had a guy who strongly believes in muscle testing came up to our booth and was asking us about it. So, he kind of asked us a lot of the same questions that you've already asked us, and he just grabbed a bottle of it, held it to his chest, and was like, "Yeah, this made me better." So he's like, and he bought.
All right.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's if you're into muscle testing, that could work. But I mean, I think, you take the thing is, I guess my point is, if you're on the fence about grass-fed beef, eat grass-fed beef compared to, non-grass-fed beef for a while and see which way you feel better.
Yeah.
Do the test yourself, pay attention, and listen to your body. The muscle testing it gives you a visual, and it's kind of funny, but still, you're listening to your body, and something's either going to work for you or it doesn't.
Yeah, that's good. And I think there's so many skeptics out there when it comes to supplements or grass-fed beef or whatever it is, and they just immediately go, "Oh, if it's becoming popular, and then it's probably just this granola deal that I don't want to be a part of, and so I'm just going to immediately go against the grain on it."
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because I think the rise in popularity in a lot of these paleo, bulletproof, natural stacks, like all of this stuff is because people are it's really starting to snowball. I mean, we're starting to gain traction in this movement of, we're tired of being force-fed, factory farmed meat and cheap eggs and cheap chicken and trash stuff. And you're starting to find more and more people, the message is getting out. More and more people want to get on board with that. The demand is getting higher. There's more companies, popping up to meet that demand. So yeah, if you're not aware of it or if you're just kind of learning of it, I think you're right. It would be easy for somebody to say, this is just another fad.
Yeah, it's just another fad. And then 10 years later, they're using it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the truth is, it's not a fad. It's we're going back to basics. We're going back to it's the ex nihilo, right? We're going back to the way we're supposed to be.
That's exactly where the aim is. I think with a lot of the new stuff that's coming out. Speaking of which, let's talk about that. You wrote an awesome blog on eggs, and I just about freaked out because it's exactly what I'm trying to articulate to everybody. Let's talk about the differences between some of these eggs, okay? Because, real quickly, since you went off on a tangent, I'll go off on one. So I'm at my in-laws' house for the holidays just a couple months ago, and we go there, and they know that me and my wife, we like to eat, pastured eggs, and we do like the raw milk for my daughter and my son, and so they know we're like this. Well, they come in and they're like, well, we got like 2 types of eggs for you, and we got the free range brown eggs, and we got the grade A free range and cage free, and we got 2 different types, and it's like, I don't want to eat that, so I just, thank you very much. And I'm like, okay, I need to run off to a store and find some good eggs, So explain to me, for people listening who think I'm a freak, what are some of the key differences between these eggs, and why is it such an issue?
Yeah, so it was really cool to have the response to that blog post that we got, because I was in a similar scenario you were in, where normally I go to a farmer's market and buy farm fresh eggs, or there's a local co-op here where I can get farm fresh eggs, and these are eggs from chickens that they're not in a coop, they're not in a house, they're not in a cage, they're completely, to use the word, free range, but they're pasture raised hens, right? And so those eggs, the story is I didn't have any, and I had to go to the grocery store, and I was mesmerized at the choices. I was like, how are there this many choices at a regular grocery store in eggs? And they all say cage free and free range, and they're advertising that as, it's not the cage free or the free range that drove me crazy. It was that every time I picked one up to read a little bit closer, it said, our chickens are fed grain free vegetarian diet. That's what kills me. and it's they're bragging and they're boasting about the fact that their chickens eat these it's grain fed, and
Right.
chickens don't eat grain. Well, I mean, maybe they, if you leave them to be, they might get some, but they're scavengers. They
Mhm.
eat bugs and lizards, and they're omnivores. They'll eat whatever they can get their hands on. They're not strict vegetarians. So that's what kills me is that when you eat, like humans, if we eat a diet that's not natural to us, we know that that has a negative impact on our health.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the argument of grass-fed, grass-finished beef versus factory farmed cattle. Cows are meant, they have four stomachs. They're supposed to eat grass. They're not supposed to eat, you know, corn pellets or soy pellets, especially corn that's covered in Roundup.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we'll stay on the chickens.
All
You
right.
know, if you eat animals that have been fed a diet that's not natural to them, you're not getting the nutrition that you think you're getting. And, even worse, you could be eating, sick tissue, sick flesh. And, especially with something like an egg, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, like when you eat meat, you're eating animal flesh. I mean, you would think that you would want to eat a healthy animal, not one that's rotting on the inside while it's alive or pumped full of antibiotics or whatever. So
Oh.
I'm kind of exaggerating, but I think you understand. You get the
Uh,
point.
I don't know if you. I mean, I don't know if you're exaggerating that much. I mean, you
So,
probably saw Food Inc. like I did. And you saw those
yeah,
chickens laying on their back. They're too
yeah,
heavy to walk because they're
exactly,
pumped full of antibiotics and steroids.
exactly. Yep, yep. And they're not given room to move, so they never develop leg muscles big enough to support their upper bodies. Right.
Oh man, yeah, and it.
And then they're going to lay an egg, and you're going to eat that. And so, if you've ever had a pastured egg or a farm fresh egg, the yolk is almost orange. I'll
Yeah,
never forget the first time I cracked one open.
yeah,
And I mean, it's darker than this yellow, if you can see on the Natural Stacks logo here. I mean, it was. I just remember thinking, oh my God, that's orange.
mm,
So, you know, if you go to buy eggs and the marketing for that egg is touting that the chicken has been fed a vegetarian grain-fed diet, run. I don't care if it says cage free or free range, don't buy it, don't eat it. It's that chicken wasn't fed its natural diet. Why would you brag about that? That's like saying, hey, I fed this cow corn.
it's vegetarian
Yeah.
corn. Well,
And so,
they've got that on beef too now. Vegetarian
yeah.
fed diet, which is corn and grain. Okay, great, thanks.
There was news that came out about 2 weeks ago where the FDA was actually going to try to change the labeling so that they didn't have to the label of not being labeled grass fed was costing beef farmers money.
Yeah, I've heard
So
about
they're
this.
fighting it and they're trying to get rid of that label differential. So that could be why you're saying, why people are seeing what you just said, where it says vegetarian fed. Well, I mean, yeah, corn and grass are both vegetarian. So how do we differentiate as a consumer?
Yeah.
That's not in our interest. I mean, Congress is trying to pass the Dark Act, deny Americans the right to know. And a lot of that
Mm,
has to do with GMO labeling, but it's still the same concept where people who stand to lose a lot of money if the American consumer switches to all grass fed and pasture raised.
yeah.
Those people who stand to lose a lot of money are pulling some strings to try to make it so that they don't lose billions and billions of dollars.
Uh,
If you watch Cowspiracy or Food Matters or Food Inc., you see a lot of that. And but yeah, I guess back to your original question, the cage free, the free range. I mean, those terminologies, and I spelled it out on that blog. We can link to that in the show notes
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
But there's very distinct language there, and free range just means that they had the ability to leave the cage if they wanted to. Cage free means, hey, they're not in a cage that's the size of this laptop, but they may be in a house that's the size of your room, and there could be 500 chickens in there. That's not a cage. So technically, they can call that cage free.
Hmm.
Uh, so you just have to be really, really careful. And what I found and what the point of that blog post was that, look, A, don't eat vegetarian eggs. B, don't trust those labels. You need to get it either from a farmer that where you can ask them the first time at a farmer's market, hey, tell me about your chickens.
Hmm.
And every time you go to the farmer's market, that's your guy. And now you're supporting somebody local. You're supporting somebody who's involved in this movement, and it's a community thing. And that's really what this whole movement is all about.
Yeah, and they're oftentimes pretty cheap too. I mean, I go to the farmers market or the local farm we have here out in Salt Lake City, and I mean, you can get a dozen eggs for $4 or $5, pasture raised, farm fresh eggs. And you can go into a store and yeah, you could get. I guess you can go to Costco and get 64 cyborg eggs for $4, but
Yeah,
you're not getting it. I've got your blog post up here. Pasture raised chicken eggs, 4 to 6 times more vitamin D, 4 times more vitamin E, double the vitamin A, lower cholesterol, less saturated fat. And it says, while we don't necessarily want to avoid good saturated fat, less of it from an inflamed animal, that's a good thing. And then most
right.
importantly, well, at least for argument's sake, double the omega-3, which people are saying, okay, we should eat eggs. Let's get some good, healthy omega-3 fats. You might not even be getting any of the stuff you're hoping for, and you're getting a whole lot of other problems involved.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. It is. I think that's probably the point I should have started with. Is that if you get to know your farmer, I mean, I pay $3 or $4 a dozen for my eggs, and even from a farmer I don't know on our farmers markets,
Mm.
they're $4 a dozen. But once you get to know them, if a farmer knows, hey, I can bring 3 or 4 dozen to market every week, and this dude's going to be here and he's going to get them,
Yeah.
he may drop the price to 350 or three a dozen. You talk to them, talk to your farmers at your farmers market. You'll be surprised what they'll do if they have a guaranteed buyer every week.
Yeah, that's huge. That's just the biggest argument I hear all the time. Oh, they're so expensive, and but it's. I always say even if you do have to spend a little more now, you spend a little more now because the last 10 years of your life you're not paying hospital bills the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have if you don't have your health? I mean, you're making a giant assumption there.
Yeah, you are.
And yeah,
I mean, people. I don't know what it is about Americans, especially and Westerners. I mean, we just live in the moment. That's what we're about. And in terms of an egg, I mean, let's just quickly to go back to what they look like. I mean, they're white eggs, right? They're pasteurized, so it's confusing, a little more
yeah,
confusing language there.
yeah,
And then their shells are weak. They've got kind of like a palish yellow yolk, and then the yolks, if you probably notice, they when you crack them into the
right.
pan, they break.
Yeah,
So you can't
yeah,
make fried eggs very easily. And people are like, "Oh man, you just suck at making fried eggs." Like, or you're just good at it. No, I just have way better eggs than you, man. it's
yeah,
it's funny. Well,
yep.
hey, let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about fitness, man. You wrote a pretty cool blog actually came out today about yoga, and men in particular doing yoga, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on one, just what it's like being coming from that model world to now trying to lift for your fitness while eating healthy, because a lot of people they think that you've got to eat a certain way to be fit, but then also into yoga. I'll let you just fire away on however you want to address it.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll address the blog first. I've always loved reading strength coaches. I've ever since the first moment where I said when I was at Clemson and I saw elite level performance, from an arm's length away. I mean, I was lucky. I saw C.J. Spiller and Jacoby Ford go 1-2 in the 60 indoor, and I'm sure you know who both of those guys
Oh
are.
yeah.
And when you see them in person up close, you've seen elite performance. And I've been obsessed with it ever since then. And one of the guys, strength coaches that I love reading is Dan John,
Hmm.
and he was the first that I heard about this study from, and it was a study in Brazil, and they found an extremely close link between mobility and lifespan. There was a simple test where you sit on the floor, legs out, so your body's kind of in an L shape, torso's upright, legs are out, and you get up to the standing position. And if you have to put your hands on the floor, if you have to use the outside of your leg, anything other than your butt and the bottom of your feet, then you have deductions from your score.
Hmm.
And the more points of contact that people had to use, the shorter their lifespan was. Uh, yeah,
Oh
this was
man.
crazy. And I linked to that study on the blog post that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it was really cool to have That was kind of the theme or the backbone of this podcast and the blog post that you're referring to. So we had a guy from Manflow Yoga, Dean Pullman. He came on and he was talking about, some things that men specifically, but humans in general can benefit from, to open up their chest, to, stretch their hip flexors, loosen up their hamstrings, basically all of the problem areas. And, I think mobility is one of those things that everybody knows that we need more of it, but people just don't do it. It'd be like if you said, hey, what are the 3 best tips you can do? Eat better, sleep better, and move better. Right? Like that's not really going to surprise anybody.
Yeah.
But how many people actually put in the time to work on mobility? Right? And if you do, it's crazy. It's one of those things where if you dedicate 30 days to mobility, like hard mobility, like a hardcore dedication to it. Like you do the ankle stuff and you work on, whether it's a prayer squat or anything that he mentioned there on our post. You see really, really drastic improvements very, very quickly. And mobility is a thing that as long as you can back off of how frequently you train it once you have it. And once you have it, it kind of stays with you. People see me move in the gym all the time, people that I'm coaching and training, and they're like, man, how do you do that? I'm like, well, I spent time developing it and I've just never stopped moving. So I keep it. and it's kind of interesting where anybody who buys into it, they experience the same thing. So you're right. That was a really cool post. And I wish a lot more people would, that was our point of having Dean on was, that a lot of people, men in general, just kind of pass that off and say, like he made the great comment where, at the end of your workout, you may look at your workout buddy. Hey, you want to stretch? Nah, I'm just going to go home. I'll do that later or do it tomorrow. It's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not as cool as a big deadlift. You're never going to put that on Instagram or YouTube, right? Like it's just not cool. But what is really cool is not being in pain or being able to move, being able to put your socks on in the morning without pain, getting in and out of a car. And if you've ever not been able to do that without pain, how much we take that for granted. So I think mobility is a big thing.
I think a lot of people, just real quick, I don't think a lot of people really made that connection I will hope people heard what you just said about mobility, in that most people assume that mobility helps you, walk better, feel better, stretch better, but living longer, man.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that was my point was, look, okay, if that's not enough to get you to buy in, then, here's how I always taught it as a strength coach was, and let's be clear, mobility is different from flexibility. Like, having the hamstring flexibility to say touch your toes is not the same thing as being able to get into a full range of motion squat. Right. So that's that would be my example quickly of the difference between flexibility and mobility. But so we'll stick with the squat movement pattern. If you can't do a proper squat just with your body weight, how the hell can you expect to load it with an external load, meaning a barbell, and be safe?
Exactly.
You can't. And not only be safe, but to perform at an elite level, right? Like I know I say, like, it may be weird to hear a guy who says he's obsessed with elite performance focus on these foundation things, but it's true. It's like, if you don't have this from running form, right? So if you hear running coaches, keep your Z, and you got to get your knee drive up, you got to have your foot dorsiflexed. If you have tight hip flexors, you can't get your knee high enough to get proper knee drive.
Right. If
you don't have the right ankle mobility, you can't dorsiflex your toes correctly. You can't get into the positions that you need for optimal performance if you don't have basic movement patterns.
Yeah.
So whether the promise of elite performance or the promise of living longer, whichever one it takes, one of those has got to sell you on mobility.
It should. If there's especially, I think a lot of athletes know mobility is hugely important. I've seen guys drop tense off their 40 from opening up their hips, becoming more mobile in their hips or their glutes, and just that whole area. It makes sense, right?
It's simple mechanics. I think I forget the exact number, but I think they said when Deion Sanders ran the 40, he took 18 steps. That's insane,
Yeah, I heard
right?
something like that about Randy Moss too.
But think about it in terms of like let's break that down. And I mean, let's say if I'm your performance coach and you come to me and you say, Ryan, look, I run a 4.5 40 and I've got to try out, to get back in the league and I want to run a 4.4 or a 4.35. We don't necessarily, maybe if your technique is flawless, then this example may not work. We would need to look somewhere else. But if you don't have if you have tight hip flexors and you're not getting proper knee drive, then every single step you take may be 6 inches or 4 inches shorter than it could be.
Yeah.
And if I can get 4 inches extra on every single step you take
Mm.
without changing your stride frequency, that means your 40 time could go down by a tenth or 2 tenths just by getting your knee that much higher and adding 4 inches to every step.
It's
And
amazing.
and at that level, that's all it takes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game of inches. We're talking guys getting drafted 4.48 and a 4.44, and they've made one correction, and now they're a second round pick instead of a fourth round pick or whatever whatever the case is.
Right.
That's
Right.
huge. Okay, let's go back to yoga a little bit. Now, I've done some yoga. Now, I think when I got to college, I got a coach that came in like my sophomore year said, "You've got to get into yoga classes. It's massive for you." And at the time, I was flexible. I don't know how much mobility I had, but I was definitely pretty flexible. But nothing compared to what I was like afterwards. Why do you think? I mean, what is it about men that they're just not wanting to get in on this, man?
Oh, I don't know. Uh, that's a good question. I guess I'd have to go back to what I said a while ago. I mean, it's not sexy. It's not fun. Like
Yeah.
if you've got a big deadlift workout tomorrow, you may go to bed thinking about it, or you're thinking about it through the day. Nobody goes to bed thinking, "Hey, I can't wake up tomorrow to do a hip flexor stretch or work on my prayer squat or my ankle mobility." Like I get it. I mean, it's not. It's like meal prep. Like nobody wants to do meal prep.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I don't know. Maybe some people do, but it's. I think it comes down to it falls under that preparation category, right? Like,
Hmm.
uh, I'm sure film study is probably not something that everybody wants to do, but when you realize how much return you get for the time you invest in it, you're a lot more likely to say, "All right, well,
Yeah,
I need to get in there and do film study."
it's
You
good.
know, it's one of those things, right? It's not the crowd pleaser. Nobody. It's not an Instagram video. That's
And that's the main
that.
thing is it's not an Instagram video in
Right.
today's fitness world.
Right.
Well, just think about it. I mean, just like film say, it's an investment.
Mhm.
It's insurance and it's an investment on uh, your performance in the future, and that's exactly what it is. You got to look at it like it's investment. It's not the icing on the cake. It's not the sexy thing, but man, it's effective and
Yeah.
it's making people athletes, and apparently it's helping them live longer. So it's
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hey man, we're coming up on our time, but there's something I always like to ask folks. I mean, you've got a wide range of talents and abilities. I'm so glad you were able to get on here, be your charismatic self. This has just been fantastic. Hope to have you on in the future. But um, two or three things, man. Your best piece of advice. If you're on a mountain and you could shout them, and you whether that's your clients or folks online, whatever it is, what are you going to tell them? That's the most important things to being successful and being happy.
Wow. Yeah, I just looked at the clock and I'm realizing we have been talking for a while. I hope we've given your listeners some useful and actionable information so
Yeah,
far.
yeah, I
And I
believe we have.
appreciate it. So wow, that's tough. I wasn't prepared for this. I ask people this all the time, and I'm not prepared. I would say number one, um, do what makes you happy.
It's good.
Do what makes you happy, not what you think other people will like about you. Or I think we live in that Instagram or Facebook society where you think, hey, if I just do this, or hey, if I just get that,
Yeah.
people will value me, respect me, whatever. I think I'm going to kind of steal something you said when you came on our show. You said, find your transcendental or your transcendent purpose. And to me, it's kind of the same thing is what makes you happy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm really lucky. I saw Publishers Clearinghouse is doing this thing where you can win $5,000 a week for the rest of your life.
Okay.
And it's like if I won that, I'd still do exactly what I do right now.
That's
And
right.
and I think you would too. And I
Absolutely.
think anybody that you meet who's genuinely happy would probably say that. And I think anybody who's maybe not happy is probably either trapped or stuck or for some reason not doing what makes them happy. I would say whatever it takes, if it's in your power, do what makes you happy. Um, and number two, I guess is kind of it goes along with that is just believe in yourself, or kind of take control, take responsibility, whether it's the food that you put in your body, the thoughts, the words that come out of your mouth, whatever it is. I think know that you have the power to control your own destiny, and just go out there and make it happen.
Heck yeah, man. Dude, honestly, Ryan, I wish, if it wasn't 8 o'clock for you right now, I'd have you on for a whole nother hour and we just roll and do another episode, but it's
I
getting late. So,
let's. I tell you what. I tell you what. We'll set another one up and we'll
okay.
do another one down the road because I feel like there's a whole lot of stuff we didn't talk about that we could,
Yeah.
and I can talk to you all day, man. I love being
Cool.
able to talk with you. So
Cool. Let's do that, man. Well, hey,
okay.
where can people get a hold of you? Where are they going to find, these awesome blogs? What's going on?
Yeah, so everything I'm writing right now with Natural Stacks is on our optimalperformance.com blog. Podcast is Optimal Performance Podcast. I believe you were episode 23. So if people want to catch you on ours, it was episode 23.
Awesome.
I'll shoot you the link to it. We can put it on the show notes if
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
But everything I'm doing right now that we talked about with Natural Stacks is on optimalperformance.com. That's the podcast. I still have my personal site, ryanmunsey.com. Not a whole lot of new content going there, but that is where I do my coaching through. So,
Social media? Facebook?
social media, yeah. Again, it's I'm running it for Natural Stacks right now. So those are all at Natural Stacks.
Okay.
And then Facebook is just me, Ryan Munsey. Instagram is Ryan Munsey with an underscore at the end of my name.
And we'll put all this up for you. Don't worry.
Yeah. And then Twitter is Ryan Munsey.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, man, it's been awesome, dude. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, Eddie, thanks for having me, and we'll do it again.
Absolutely.